Hello, all, and welcome to my podcast, Motivation Unleashed. I'm super excited to have you guys here with us today, as I am planning to continue my topic or my discussion on habits, which I've been doing over the last couple of days. So, what am I going to talk to you about today? Today, I'm going to talk about how habits actually impact our lives over time. So depending on whether you have really good habits in your life, or if you're someone who's having very challenging, or someone who's dealing with negative habits, I want to make you understand over time how those habits have an impact on your life and what the long-term outcomes might be. I also want to give you some tools and also empower you to work on yourself and change some of those, especially some of those challenging bad habits. I want to give you the tools to actually allow you to change and work on them and continue to improve yourself. So before I start off, I like to talk a bit about the previous episode I did on habits. I did on episode 1, I discussed about what habits are, the definition of a habit, how they tend to be formed in our brains as we go through our day-to-day life. I also did touch on something called habit loop, which consists of a cue, a routine, and a reward. And I kind of try to give you a sense of how habits relate to this habit loop, and how we, without even thinking about it, our brains use habits to automate certain tasks of our day-to-day lives, right? I also did touch on why it's important for us to try and change some of those negative habits, and I gave you some high-level tips on how you can work on yourself to change, especially if you're dealing with negative habits, how you can potentially change these habits. So before I start off on episode 2, I also, for episode 1, if you want to listen to that episode 1, there is a link which I've included in the description below, which you can follow and listen to the episode 1. I would also recommend that you try and listen to the first episode before you listen to this one. I'd also encourage all our listeners out there who's listening to this channel, who's finding this content useful, to subscribe to my YouTube channel here if you're listening to me on YouTube. You can also follow me on Instagram on motivated.unleashed. And also, I encourage you to listen to my podcast, especially if you're someone who's traveling and who's looking for content or information of this nature. So with that being said, let's move on to today's topic. So I'll start off with a very first point in this episode. You need to, your life does actually reflect your daily habits, right? So if you look at most people, they tend to be unhappy, or they tend to complain about their life, right? And they come up with all these terms or excuses around, oh, you know what, this is just the way I am. I'm down on my luck. Things have always been this way for me. I don't really see how I can change the situation anymore. And people are generally unhappy, right? And the nature of people is that they tend to blame everything around them for their problems. I mean, it could be that we are dealing with a bad government or bad governance in the country. It could be that it's because of my parents. They didn't, bring me up properly, or they didn't give me that life I wanted. It could be my friends, my family in general. You have all this negativity around, or almost like, this may sound a bit harsh, but almost like excuses, where you're kind of making all these excuses for yourself, and you're blaming everyone else around you, instead of actually having a look at yourself, right? Sometimes, in order for us to change our lives, or the way our lives are at the moment, we actually need to look deep into ourselves first. Some of us do have tough luck, right? Not all of us are blessed with having great families, and wealth, and and who are born in, they're born into wealth, or a good circumstances. There are a lot of people out there who are born into very challenging circumstances. I mean, I myself am one of them, right? As a kid, I've had very challenging time with my family, and it's never been easy. I've never got things or the silver spoon, as they say. But what's important is you need to stop blaming everyone around you. There's a point where you need to decide, okay, what can I do to change my life? And in most cases, that starts with you, right? So, and that's where habits form a crucial part of this, right? So, if you're having a if your present circumstances and your present life, you're not really happy with it, you need to start by looking at yourself. So by looking at yourself, what do I mean by look at yourself? I would start off by looking at, for example, the very thing I'm talking about, which is our habits. Um, I would sit back and take a look at what do I do on a day to day. What's my routine in the morning? What are some of the habits I actually follow? Um, from the time I get up in the morning till I go to bed. Do I get up and do I have a healthy exercise routine? Do I actually spend some time working out? Do I have a glass of water in the morning to hydrate myself? What's the first meal you have in the day? Is it a healthy meal? Is it a fruit juice? Is it a shake, or is it processed food? Right? How? What's my routine getting ready for work? And once I get to work, what are the habits I follow? Do I spend just scrolling on Facebook before, as soon as I sit in front of my desk and I'm looking at my job, or am I actually focused on and planning out the tasks for the day to day, right? And what do I do once I get back from work, right? If you're someone who's working, what do I do once I get back from work? Am I do I just come in, sit on the couch, flick the remote, and binge Netflix for till I go to bed? Maybe I just grab a quick frozen dinner and then I watch TV till late, or I'm just scrolling social media, and then do I just go to bed? So, or do I actually spend some time working on myself after I'm back from work? Do I maybe take half an hour break? I mean, maybe watch a little bit of TV for about half an hour, and the rest of the time, do I actually start working on my little side hustle? Or do I look at reading a book in order to educate myself? Do I do something which will actually help me improve myself? See, most people, and the habits play a crucial role in this, they waste the little bit of time they have for themselves, right? I mean, most of us, let's be realistic, we spend our time from 9 to 5 doing a job, taking care of our families, having all these responsibilities, financial responsibilities, everything we need to do. But that little bit of time you have for yourself, once between coming back from work and your bedtime, what do you do? What do you do? Do you spend time with your family? Do you spend time with your kids? Do you spend time reading and trying to maybe trying to understand about investing, so that you can start investing some of that money you're earning from your income from your job towards your retirement, or to build up your wealth over time? Do so all those things, so all those day-to-day activities and all those things you do without you even knowing it, the present life you have is actually based on that routine you follow, right? So you need to understand your habits, positive or negative, have a very serious impact on your life circumstances overall, your health, your finances, your relationships, right? All these things are impacted by your habits. I mean, let's take a very simple example of habits, right? So let's take like you brushing your teeth in the morning. I mean, if you're someone who brushes your teeth morning and afternoon, after your meals, and you take care of yourself over long term, well into your old age, your teeth will remain healthy because you're regularly brushing them, right? You're having that habit where you're doing that all the time. And just imagine if you take the negative side of this, what's going to happen now? Like, let's say you don't brush your teeth at all, or you just do it maybe once every 3 or 4 times a week, or just once every 2 days. What do you think the outcome will be? Day one, nothing will happen. 1 month down the track, nothing will happen. A year down the track, maybe your teeth will start discoloring, and eventually what's going to happen? Your teeth are going to get rotten, your cavities are going to form. You will start dealing with all these health issues with your teeth, and you'll need to get into surgery to fix all the problems. So then over time you will have very bad teeth, right? So that is why it's very important for you to understand the compounding effects of habits which will be there in your life. So I brought in a new word which is called compounding. So what is compounding? We hear the term compounding in the world of finance, especially if you're someone who's into all things finance, or maybe working in the finance industry, or you're an investor like myself. You will realize that you will hear the term a lot of compounding. So let me explain compounding in finance terms. Firstly, if you have a principal, let's say you have some money sitting in a bank, and the bank pays you, like, let's take 1,000 as the example. You have 1,000 sitting in the bank, and the bank pays you like a 10% interest on it. So over time, what's going to happen? The bank will pay you interest. So instead of $1,000, now you'll have $1,100, right? So yeah, you will have $1,100. So then, the next month, once you now have the $1,100 sitting in your bank, and the next month you will get another $100. No, you'll get more than $100, because now you have a principal of $1,100, and on top of that, you're getting you'll be paid interest on that $1,100. Previously, you were paid interest on the $1,000. On month 2, you'll be paid on $1,100. So your interest amount will go up a little bit, right? So when it goes up a little bit, and then, as an example, just to keep things simple, let's just pick a number, right? Let's say over time it's $1,500, and over time it becomes $2,000, and the interest component which is paid also grows because your principal amount is growing, right? So that is called compound interest. So compound interest, in the example, in the case of in my bank example, that is how it would build up over time. So there is a compounding effect. So that's compounding effects in relation to finance. There is another part of compounding, which is compounding in your life. So compounding is a universal law, right? So how does compounding impact our lives? It's consistent habits. Let's say you follow a habit daily, right? And that habit will have certain impacts over time. And you will realize that the effects of that impact the effects of that habit will compound over time as well. And again, let me take a simple example to illustrate this. Let's say you are someone who has sugary snacks all the time. You start having sugary. Let's say you have very, very sugary drinks, fizzy drinks, and you consume 2 cans, 3 cans a day, and you start off month 1. Would you see a real impact? Probably not. Month 2, would you see an impact? Still maybe not. Month 3, maybe you feel a bit more sluggish. You feel your body is heavier. Maybe you'll start putting on a little bit of weight, right? Still, yeah, okay, right? You don't think much about it. So let's say you keep doing this for a year, right? And 2 years, and then over time you will see that you become more obese. Your body, your blood sugar levels will go up over time. And you might, because your blood sugar level goes up, we all know diabetes is not a good disease to have, right? And then you start getting all these other complications in your body, and because and fast forward into 5-6 years, you might be having so much of fizzy drinks that it might start impacting your internal organs in your body. I mean, I'm not a medical doctor, but your internal filtering systems, or the organs in your body might go bad, and you might end up having more serious illnesses, right? So you can see that that's how compounding works for us in our habits. Same way in a positive habit, right? Same way in a positive habit where, let's say you start exercising. Let's say you start doing, 10 push-ups a day, right? Very simple, very easy. You do 10 push-ups a day, and you do that for a month. Would you really see much of an impact? Probably not. Would you start feeling better about yourself? Yes. So let's say second month, third month, you slowly increase the number of push-ups you do, and you'll say, oh, my arms are becoming stronger. You'll actually feel it. You'll actually feel your shoulders and your chest and your arms, your strength improve over time, right? So you keep doing that long enough, you are going to become very, very strong, right? Your arms are going, and because it's a habit, you like that feeling you get after doing those push-ups. You might start adding in more exercises to your routine, and over time it becomes a habit, and then it becomes second nature, And and what's the compounding effect of it? The end game of that would be that you become a very, very healthy person, right? So understand that every habit you have in your life today has a consequence, positive consequence or a negative consequence. And what I see mostly in people is that people keep blaming, individuals keep blaming everything and everyone around them, but they don't actually look at themselves, right? And the hardest thing, especially with bad habits, is the fact that people struggle a lot to overcome them, right? It's almost like a universal law where forming good habits tends to be more challenging than forming bad habits. I'm thinking in that whole habit loop, especially with the reward component, especially when the reward is something which makes you feel really good. It gets dopamine flowing in your brain. It gives really, really, it gives you such good feelings that it becomes very, very hard for you to overcome those bad habits, right? But what you need to understand is that if you keep going down that path, especially, and I'm talking about negative habits here, that if you do not take control of your life, it's really going to have a negative impact over time, right? Especially things like where, over excessive drinking of alcohol, things like, having a lot of unhealthy foods, smoking, the list goes on, but you need to realize even addiction to things like pornography, that can really, really take you off the rails in a very, very bad way. So yeah, you need to understand this, right? So I've spoken all about this, but you might be thinking to yourself, why should I care? Why should I be so concerned about my habits, right? Well, you need to understand a couple of things. The present life you have is a reflection of your habits. The present circumstances, the present reality you're having is a reason, your habits play a pretty crucial role. If you're not happy with your life, you feel like you're stuck, you've been doing a dead end jump for years and years and you're not making any progress, your habits has a crucial role to play in that. If you're unhealthy and if you're dealing with health complications, your habits and your the present life is again a reflection of what you've been doing in the past over time. And it's the same with your relationships, right? So you should care, because especially when it comes to negative habits, it has a very, very, very bad impact on your life, right? And over time, and over time, if you keep continuing it, it's only going to make it worse, and you can end up paying a very, very heavy price for it. We all pay a price, right? Whatever we do in life, whatever we want, there's this saying, right? Everything has a price. So even your habits, especially your negative, positive habits, everything has a price. Positive habits has a price of you being committed, and maybe you foregoing certain indulgences just to for example, build up a healthier body. You might stop eating that snack or that processed food. That's a price you're paying. It's the same way if for a bad habit, for if you're someone who's continuously smoking cigarettes, you're paying a price for it. You're paying a price financially. You're also paying a price physically, from your health, your lungs, your throat, your veins, right? So your arteries, like everything has a price. So you need to understand that it has an impact, and you should care about this, especially if you want to turn your life around. If you're someone who's been doing this, having a life, and you're not happy with your life, and you're looking at your circumstances and you want to change, you need to be really serious about this, and you need to look at your habits and understand what where you're going wrong, right? So anyone who's serious about changing their life, you need to start with your habits. And you need to understand that if you want to build up a positive life, if you want to be successful, and again, successful, I'm using it very loosely here. Success can mean different things to different people, but if you are after positive outcomes, or if you're someone who's after, you want to change your life, you need to build up consistent good habits, and you cannot achieve that life you're after without building up good habits. It's almost like a foundation for that building you're trying to put up, right? So, and positive habits will enable you to build that life you're always dreaming of, and it'll allow you to take control of your life. develop, change your life for the positive, build up, achieve all those things you've wanted to achieve in your life over time, right? So it's important that you take control of your life now and you start working on yourself, right? So I'm going to give you a few tips on how you can potentially do this, right? I mean, I did give some high level tips on changing your habits on episode 1. Again, if you're interested in listening to episode 1, you can find the link in the description below. And please, I encourage you to click and listen to that episode as well, because it will give you a foundational understanding of habits and how it impacts our lives, right? So what are some of the things you can, so let's say you're on this path, you make a decision, right? You know what, I want to start changing my life. I want to look at my habits and I want to improve my life. What are some of the first things you need to do? The first thing is, it's all up here. You need to change and develop your mindset, right? You need to understand, you need to first take a hard look at your life and understand where you're having a lot of negative impact at the moment. All right, so let's say you're dealing with a bad habit. You need to condition your mind here. So let's say you're someone who's dealing with a lot of smoking. Let's say I keep taking smoking because I feel it's like it really destroys people, especially when it comes to their health. So that's why I keep keep going back to smoking. But yeah, I mean, first look at that habit and maybe just look at what are the long-term impacts. We've all got access to information at our fingertips, right? Maybe Google it, understand the long-term impacts of smoking. You will see how bad it can get for people. The end game could be cancer. People end up with strokes. There's so many things. So understand, you need to get and make your brain understand, if I keep doing this over time, this is the end game for me, or this is where I'm going to potentially end up, right? So that will kind of make you realize, oh shit, this is serious, right? So and the reason I'm telling you to understand what the end result could be of the track you're on, because that will kind of help you change your mindset, and change your and kind of get that motivation you need to actually change yourself, right? And once you understand the impacts, and once you have that understand and you have that mindset change, you can even set some goals for yourself. You can set some SMART goals and start working towards changing that habit. I actually plan to do a separate topic on goals, which which I'm planning to do in the coming weeks. So please do continue to watch this space. And again, for anyone who's listening in, I'd encourage you to subscribe to my channel. So so once you analyzed and you've realized this is the potential end impact of this bad habit I'm having. I mean, if you take the smoking example again, really bad health complications, my finances. I mean, these things are expensive, right? Especially if you're living in a country like Australia, you'll see cigarettes cost a lot of money, and a lot of money. And over time, if you're a guy who smokes a pack or two a week, that's going to add up. That's going to add up a lot, right? So once you understand your habits, then you need to kind of then maybe take another step back and look at your overall life. So smoking is one thing. Are there any other bad habits in your life, right? So understand your routines, take all those habits and classify them into a separate area. So you might be having some positive habits, so classify, take a piece of paper and just write it down. These are my positive habits, these are my negative habits, these are neutral. This is not adding any value into my life. So you can classify those habits, and maybe and I'm going to reflect back to episode 1 where I talk about the habit loop. So the habit loop consists of a cue, which is in the case of, again, smoking, if you're bored, that might be your cue, and the routine might be you going and grabbing a cigarette from your cigarette pack and lighting it up, and the reward is that feeling of pleasure you get from smoking, right? That dopamine rush you get to your brain. So I would classify, so once I would take all those habits and put them into these habit loops. I would identify the cue, the routine, and the reward for smoking habit. Then I would identify the cue, the routine, and reward for, let's say, if I'm having unhealthy snacks all the time. So I would, put each of these habits that I have in my life, day-to-day life, into these different habit loops, and create these habit loops, and just try and almost do an analysis on these things, right? And I would encourage you to not start trying and attacking all your bad habits at once. I would, isolate them, the habit which is having the most severe impact in your life at the moment, and then start working on that, right? So once you understand the cue, routine, and reward, I would look at how can I potentially change these habits, right? And again, you can take a phased out approach where little by little, let's say a smoking habit, you would look at replacing that reward component. So in your smoking habit, that reward component is the cigarette. Maybe you slowly start phasing that cigarette out. You can maybe start having over time having a half a cigarette, and then eventually you can transition onto maybe a nicotine patch whenever you get that craving, or you can even transition onto a healthier some kind of a snack which gives you that same feeling of pleasure, right? So we're trying to almost program our brain to change its automation, or it's that coding it has in its which it has programmed for itself. I mean, our brains are like computers at the end of the day. You can even start experimenting with the cue. So for example, the cue might be boredom. Maybe you see how you can change your environment so that you don't you don't get bored all the time, which is harder to do in this case, but it's just as an example, right? You can also have maybe some person who's accountable, maybe your partner, to make you accountable for it. Every time you try to grab a cigarette, that person will discourage you from doing it. So there's a number of things, and a number of things you can play around with this cue, routine, and reward things. You can kind of, or you can even make it very difficult, right? You let's say you don't have a cigarette pack in your house at all, right? So when it's harder to actually follow the routine, then that will kind of kill that whole process as well to a certain extent. So there are a number of levers which you can pull between the cue, routine, and reward, and you can start working on changing your life, right? So then, I mean, it's not just enough to kill your negative habits. You also need to look at your positive habits. You need to start introducing positive habits to yourself. So that's why it's important for you to start following some content, channels such as Motivation Unleashed, or there are plenty of YouTubers, podcasters out there who talk about positive things you can introduce into your life, how you can change your life. So I would keep fueling the fire, especially if you're on this task to change your life and make your life better. I would keep fueling the fire all the time, just to keep improving myself, right? So it's important that you consistently keep doing this, and it's important for you to keep feeding your brain with positive affirmations. It's important for you to start experimenting with all these, once you have identified all your bad habits, it's important to start working on them. So start working on them one by one. And once you feel that you're succeeding and you're potentially overcoming one bad habit, then you move on to the next one. So, and then, at the same time, you'll also start working on introducing positive habits to yourselves, things which will have positive outcomes to your life, right? So I think I've covered off a lot today in terms of habits. I hope you found this content useful, and I keep encouraging you to keep working on yourself. It is really important, and it's not about I know this. Even if you do have some tough circumstances, just keep working on yourself. As a person who's been through a lot, in terms of family circumstances, I mean, it's never easy. I understand how hard it is, but you need to make that mental shift in your head, and you need to come to this position that no, I need to actually work on myself and improve myself. So I'd also love to leave you with some reference material for my topic today. There's a great book out there called Atomic Habits, which has been written by a guy called James Clear, who's an extremely smart man in my opinion. So do have a read of that book. I always encourage you to get the printed version of a book as opposed to the digital copy, because the printed version you can underline, you can highlight, you can make down notes, you can put stickies in there. So do have a read of that book. So it's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. I have also left the link for that book down in the description below. You can click and you can purchase that book through my referral link, which will of course help me as well and help the channel. So again, I wish you the very best of luck, and as always, stay motivated and unleash the power of your mind. Thank you.